In our last lesson, we talked about solving two-step equations. So we started with one-step equations. We added a second step to get two-step equations. Today we'll be talking about multi-step equations, where again we'll be going through order of operations. A lot of you know that as PEMDAS. We'll be going through it backwards in order to undo the equation and isolate the variable. Here's our first equation. So it's negative 4 equals n minus 4 minus 3. So the first thing I'll do, I'll go ahead and combine like terms. Negative 4, negative 3. So if I rewrite that problem up here, negative 4 equals n minus, so negative 4 minus 3 is negative 7. Then this is just a one-step equation. I go ahead and add 7, and I end up with 3 equals n. Here's my next equation. 8 plus 5 times 8 plus 4n equals 188. So again, I'll simplify whatever I can. Well, if I distribute this, I'll have to bring it out later. So I'm just going to start doing my inverse operations. I'm going to start off by subtracting 8. So if I rewrite this up here, 8 plus 5 times 8 plus 4n equals 188. I'm going to go ahead and start off by subtracting 8. And I'll subtract 8 again. 8 minus 8 is 0, so this is an identity. And I have my new equation, 5 times 8 plus 4n equals 188 minus 8, which is 180. My next step, I'm doing it backwards. So I've done addition and subtraction. Now I'm doing multiplication and division. I'm multiplying by 5. So I'm going to do the inverse operation, which is dividing by 5. 5 divided by 5 is 1, which is an identity. 1 times any number is still that number. It's an identity. And I end up with 8 plus 4n equals 180 divided by 5, which is going to be 36. I subtract 8, and I get 0 over here. 8 minus 8 is an identity. I have 0. So I have 4n equals 36 minus 8, which is going to be 28. I divide by 4, and n equals 7. So you can see, same steps as one-step and two-step equations. We're just doing a couple more steps per problem. Here's question 3. I'm going to go ahead and start off by dividing by 8, by dividing by negative 8. So I have my original equation, negative 8 times x minus 8 equals 104. And I begin by dividing by negative 8. I can't do the subtraction yet because it's in parentheses. And when we do PEMDAS backwards, we do order of operations backwards, the parentheses come last. So negative 8 divided by 8 is 1. That's an identity. That's what we wanted. X minus 8 equals negative 8 into 104. We know that will be a negative number. 8 goes into 10 once. 8 goes into 24 3 times. Now we add 8. And x equals negative 5. Our fourth example, we'll rewrite negative 84 equals 8n plus 3 times n minus 6. So we have a couple of variables here. In order for me to combine this n with the n in parentheses, so the 8n with the n in parentheses, I need to go ahead and distribute. So I'm going to go ahead and distribute this 3, which I could also do using the box method, n minus 6. So 3 times n is 3n. 3 times negative 6, negative 18. Some of you might have seen the box method in junior high school. So now I have negative 84, which equals 8n plus 3n minus 18. You can see I've taken the 3n and the minus 18 straight out of these boxes from the box method of multiplication, similar to distribution. I combine like terms, 8n and 3n, which is 11n minus 18 equals negative 84. And then I go ahead and I add 18. When I add 18, I end up with 66 equals 11n. My last step is to divide by 11, and n equals 6. If I just brought this straight down, it would have said 6 equals n, but because of commutative properties, I can commute them across. The equal sign is still a true statement. Whether n equals 6 or 6 equals n, either way it's the same thing. Example 5. In example 5, I'll be distributing twice. So I'll start off negative 44 equals, and let me just draw some boxes over here. So here's my 8 box. I'm going to distribute 8 by 2 and by r. So 8 times 2 is 16. 8 times r is 8r. And then I'll do my second box for side work. 4 times negative 5r times negative 6. So 4 times negative 5r is negative 20r. 4 times negative 6 is negative 24. I'll go ahead and put these up here in this equation, just taking them straight out of the box. I have 16 plus 8r minus 20r minus 24. And I'll combine like terms. So here's an r term. Here's another r term. I'll combine those first, and I have negative 44 equals negative 12r. 8 minus 20 is negative 12. And then I'll do my actual constant terms, 16 minus 24, and that is negative 8. At this point, I can add 8 to both sides, and I have negative 36 equals negative 12r. I divide by negative 12 on both sides, and negative divided by negative is a positive. 3 equals r. Problem 6. Again, I'll combine like terms. So my new equation is negative 2 equals 1r plus 7r, which is 8r, minus 2. I'll add 2. Negative 2 plus 2 is 0. And I will divide by 8. 8 divided by 8 is 1. That's an identity. So r equals 0 divided by 8. If I have 0 slices of an 8-slice pizza, I have 0. So 0 equals r. Or in other words, r equals 0. Question 7. I have distribution. I'll just write my box over to the side. I have 7 and negative 8x. 5 times 7 is 35. 5 times negative 8x is negative 40x. So when I rewrite my equation up here, I'll begin with 5x plus 35. I'm taking this straight out of my distribution box. Minus 40x equals 175. And I'll combine like terms. Here's an x term. Here's an x term. So I have 5x minus 40x, which is negative 35x, plus 35, equals 175. I subtract 35 from both sides, and I end up with an identity which is 0. Negative 35x equals 140. I divide by negative 35. And I get x equals 4. I'm going to double check that because I'm not 100% sure if 4 is correct. 4 times 5 is 20. 3 times 4 is 12, plus 2 is 40. Okay, so I know that's correct. I have a positive divided by a negative. I leave the negative sign on the 4. X equals negative 4. I have two distributions again, so I'll begin by setting up my boxes. Negative 6 will be distributed by 5x and 6. Negative 6 times 5x is negative 30x. Negative 6 times 6 is negative 36. I set up my second distribution box, 6 times x plus 8. This is also called the area model. If you see these boxes being used in the future, it's also called the area model. 6 times x is 6x. 6 times 8 is 48. And I'll begin to rewrite my equation. So I have negative 36 equals negative 30x minus 36 plus 6x plus 48. And I combine like terms. So here's an x term, positive 6x, negative 30x. So I have negative 36 equals negative 30x plus 6x is negative 24x. And then I have negative 36 plus 48, which is a positive 12. I can subtract 12 from both sides, and I get negative 48 equals 24x. I divide by 24. I apologize. This is a negative 24. Back up here, it's a negative 24. I did not bring my sign. I'm going to need to bring that sign down when I divide. Negative 48 divided by negative 24 is a positive 2, which equals x. Question 9. Two distributions again. Set up my boxes. 6 times negative 4x, positive 7, and 7 times 5 plus 3x. 6 times negative 4x is negative 24x. 6 times 7 is 42. 7 times 5 is 35. 7 times 3x is 21x. Almost out of time in this video, so I'm going to talk a little faster. If you need to pause it, please feel free to do so. Negative 24x plus 42 plus 35 plus 21x equals 53. And I begin to combine like terms. Here's my x term. Here's my other x term. Negative 24x plus 21x is negative 3x. Then I have positive 42 plus a positive 35. You can see that plus sign. So that will become a positive 77, which equals 53. And I'll subtract 77 from both sides. So negative 3x, this becomes an identity of 0, equals negative 24. I divide by negative 3, and x equals a positive 8. This is our last example. We don't have time for it on this video, but we'll do the same thing we've done in the past where we distribute, combine like terms, use inverse operations, and solve for our answer. Good luck.